welcome to Hollywood 97, where the only martial arts lessons we learn are from Bruce Lee and Jet. I'm your host, the X-Man.
Phantom Magic.
Rand Proxy.
North Ronan.
And today's movie is an interesting one, but in order to actually talk about it, you're gonna have, for the audience participation, you're gonna have to be very, very quiet. So keep it hush. Joke. But today's movie is A Quiet Place, written, directed, and co-produced by Jim Halpert. So, what do you guys' history with this movie?
Way back when, there was this YouTuber that I found who does kill counts for movies. I forgot the name of the YouTuber though. He does kill counts for slasher movies and stuff. And I didn't watch the video because he was talking about how good A Quiet Place is, and I decided to check it out for myself. This was around about, I want to say about a year ago. No, this was in 2019, so about 2 years ago now. And I will say that I was pleasantly surprised. Even rewatching it, of course it wasn't as good the second time around, but I was still able to appreciate the fact that it was very unique. And let me tell you, A Quiet Place. Oh, I'm sorry.
A Quiet Place is such a fitting title because you have to be very quiet. Not to mention the fact that there are like 10 lines of dialogue in the movie.
Yeah. I remember when this movie had came out, and I didn't really pay much attention to it because I don't really go see horror movie that much, and the only real prestigious horror movie that was out that was, talking from many people was Get Out. So, but I heard a lot like equally good things about it, so I wanted to check it out. When I forgot who recommended watching it for this episode, but I was pleasantly surprised how good it was.
What about you guys?
Yeah, I was pretty surprised too. I was like, wow, this is. I mean, I kind of had a feeling how the movie was gonna go, and for the most part, it kind of did go the way I thought it was gonna go, which wasn't a bad thing. But like in general, like I thought like, oh, it's actually a pretty solid, it's a pretty solid horror movie. Like the quiet moments are actually like pretty scary, and I also like the fact that like despite being a horror movie, they still managed to like kind of have it also be about the family and like how there's like this strong bond between the family.
It's more of a thriller than a horror, I think.
Yeah. And actually one thing I really like is the fact that the dad and the daughter were actually able to have a full-blown argument in complete silence.
That was amazing. Oh, fun fact.
I thought like both like funny, but also made it at the same time.
Go ahead, North
I think
Ronan.
the best part, the actress who plays his daughter, Millicent Simmons, is in fact deaf. So it stands to reason, and she knows how to communicate through and through. So it's almost not even acting.
That's interesting.
But yes, better than a non-hearing person who, whether they're conscious of it or not, will be conscious of sound cues because that's how they've lived.
Yeah.
And the other part about it being so quiet overall is that you get to experience their emotions solely through their looks, their faces and actions. Really, it kind of pushes them acting-wise to convey more with less.
What I was gonna say, I think because I know the people who co-wrote it was John Krasinski. They said they were very much influenced by silent film, and you can tell that the actors all were studying the way silent film does storytelling and just the way they convey their face to get across a message, even if they didn't need like subtitle for the which and originally they weren't going to use subtitle for the sign language at all, but they used it. And I think just watching the actors, all their faces, just the way they react to certain things, just it gives you such a clear indication of what's happening and how they're thinking and feeling. So I thought that was
Yeah,
incredibly genius of it.
I watched it for the first time without subtitles. And even when watching it for the second time, I wasn't like totally flabbergasted at I still was amazed at how well I could still understand everyone's intention and prerogative without even subtitles telling me anything.
I just want to
Yeah.
say one thing real quick, actually, about how like, oh my god, these aliens are nuts. I just want to say that right now, and I want to talk about them for a moment. These things are insane. Like, I'm looking at these things. These things can't even see. They can't see, but my god, they're hearing, and they're quick. They are quick too. Like, that was another thing that I noticed.
Yeah.
Too, especially at the beginning of the movie. And one thing that I will say, I'm not going to spoil it, but right from the very beginning of the movie, they show you that these aliens do not screw around. They don't screw around.
And also the fact that they could be lurking anywhere. It's not
Exactly.
just that they're fast, they're quiet too. Because it makes sense they don't make a lot of noise because they need to hear everything around them to see.
Exactly.
Either
Yeah.
that or they can actually see through their own noise.
What makes this, I say, the best of monster movies, like when you look at films like Jaws, Aliens, Jurassic Park, the best of monster movies tend to not show the monster until like the very end or fully. So
Yeah.
we're always in suspense. And I think they really did a good idea of just like of like keeping us in suspension of what the monster is going to look like, because it's not really, because it is. I'm going to be honest. The monster has not a, for my taste, not a super satisfying design, but it's not really about what the monster looks like. More about what it's more about the anticipation of when the monster is coming.
Yeah, like a lot of these like
Exactly.
good like monster fillers are based. The monster isn't necessarily the main. Well, it's the main, I guess, like like antagonist of the movie. It's not the main, like the main focus. Like the monster is there to be, I guess, the one that's moving the story, but it's really about the people. And the
Right.
monster, and it's more about like the idea of the monster that's scary rather than the actual monster itself.
Exactly. And
Because once
go ahead.
No,
once you see it, yeah, it's scary, but it's honestly because their anatomy, it's fully designed not only to every part of the creature's anatomy makes sense for how they behave. Like, they're slender not only to be fast, but also to be very difficult.
Oh, shit. My Discord froze.
Close with a shotgun, as seen in this movie.
yeah, like what was I gonna say? Yeah, I mean, like I said, the monster design is not my favorite, but what I do like was the backstory. Krasinski came up with a monster like that. They pretty much lived on a world that didn't have like a sun, so they lived in perpetual darkness, and they evolved to have like super hearing instead of super sight, so that's why they're blind for the movie.
Really?
Yeah, and like the fact, and remember that scene where they're in basically flooded. Like, the monster couldn't even like go around the water because seemed like it could swim. So it also seemed like it was also implying like the monster evolved on a planet where it didn't need to learn how to swim.
Yeah,
I thought that was brilliant.
Well, one thing that I will say actually, going back to the monsters design. Is it the most intimidating design? No, it's not. But I think the design is actually pretty inventive. In my opinion, especially considering the fact that anytime it needs to hear something, it like opens up the shell, and that's another thing. I love that the monsters have like this, very that they have this weakness that they have to constantly expose in order to in order to hear anything, pretty much, because that is
Yeah.
how they hear. They expose that weak spot, and I like that shell that they have too. I thought that was pretty neat.
A lot of the movie remind me a lot of like The Last of Us, and even Krasinski looked a lot like Joel from The Last of Us, and
Yeah.
apparently they were inspired by No Country for Old Men, the Coen brother movie, and I definitely see that because both that and The Last of Us were inspired by that movie, and it also reminded me of the M. Night Shyamalan movie Signs. The
Oh, Signs. Yeah.
one they thought didn't turn out to be Alien. This is like Sign was basically this movie's stupider older cousin.
Honestly, yes. I feel like
Like
I feel like John Krasinski was watching Signs one night and just thought, yeah, there are a lot of ways I can do this better.
Actually,
Yeah, and actually, the monster itself reminded me a lot of Resident
yeah,
Evil.
that too.
Oh yeah, it did kind of look like Resident Evil, but I will say, going back to The Last of Us, they were a lot like the clickers from that game. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, they do resemble because it's on the head.
They even they even make like this kind of it is a growling sound, but it's like a clicking growling sort of thing. It's a very interesting sound that they make.
Also,
It's not just a straight up roar.
And if you remember, the infected in The Last of Us were entirely hunted by them. Also,
We're entirely. Oh yeah, you're right. Yeah.
It makes sense for a creature that uses sound to see, because the clicks will create reverberations that they can sense.
right? Can we talk about John Krasinski, Jim Halpert? I'm gonna refer him as Jim Halpert for the rest of this. For all the Office fans out there, talk about how Jim Halpert was the one that directed this movie, because I'm totally surprised. I had no idea he directed a movie, especially like a horror movie. Like, that's just insane. But like, I feel like because I feel see that with a lot of comedians or comedic actors, comedic people doing horror movie. Like, you have Jordan Peele with Get Out and Us, and then recently you have Chris Rock doing the latest installment of Saw. But I guess that's always kind of like what they say about horror, and there's not much of a difference between horror and comedy.
This does seem especially true
Yeah,
as of late. Yeah, it's an example of an actor directing his own movie
right.
and having it actually pay off due to him not sort of aggrandizing himself, even though he's starring in it. Like, he's going to direct himself in and show the struggle and difficulty. Like, he's not just starring in it to look good. And you really get the sense that he's doing.
And I'm gonna cut you off, but and remember, like, at this point, I think Emily Blunt was still Jim Halpert's actual wife at the time.
That's what I heard too. Yeah.
Yeah. And they really, because apparently there was meant to be another actress to play his wife, but who was like a friend of theirs, but she suggested to just have Emily Blunt to just play the wife since they were already married. And I thought they off each other pretty well.
Yeah, they did. I
Yes.
actually think that might have
Yeah.
actually strengthened their relationship a little bit since they already had that bond in real life. And another thing, like
Mhm.
Phantom said, this was more about the bond between the family, more about the bond between I want to talk about this. One thing about the aliens don't really pay that much attention to water or anything that overshadows some kind of sound. So the scene in the waterfall was beautifully
Yeah.
filmed. I think that was the best scene in the entire movie, if you ask
Yeah.
me.
It must have been the first time that either of them could speak out loud in months or even a full year.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, it's unbelievable. Oh my lord.
I was.
Yeah. The fact that the son's terror just springs to relief when he finds that it's finally okay to say a damn thing.
Almost like it's finally okay.
It's finally okay.
It's almost like it's finally okay.
Even for a little bit.
Like it's finally okay to take off a mask.
It's finally okay to take off. It's finally okay to take off a mask. Pretty much.
Yes. It felt like the end of quarantine. I mean, on a much larger scale, but
in case our audience wants to know, we're based in New York City, so we've been going maskless for a couple of months.
Yeah.
But I want to retract back to what Ram Proxy was saying about the actress who's actually deaf in real life. I thought that was super interesting and super kind of cool because for our audience who don't know, I used to wear hearing aids in high school as well. But I thought that was like a really good representation of a deaf character. But what I thought was also interesting was the way they use her disability to, find like a Chekhov gun to defeat the monster. I thought that was super cool.
Oh yeah, that's right. She's like the key to defeating the monsters. Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember another Alien movie that came out the year prior before this movie, which was the fourth installment of the Predator film, which had which also had a kid with disability, and I think he was like autistic or something. Had this really they had this really bad, harmful kind of backward plot point where the kid's autism was like the definition, so that becomes a plot point.
Yeah, they don't really quite understand what they're doing with superpower.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead,
like,
Ronan.
what does any... Yeah, they don't really understand what they're doing when they just write it off as a superpower in whatever plot they're trying to
Yeah. But
trying to illustrate, because it doesn't really it doesn't really show any difficulty, as well as it's just too sudden of a change in nature for it to be any kind of relatable.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that does make sense.
Yeah, exactly. And I thought here, as for someone who has similar experience with hearing aids, I thought that was a really good representation. And it wasn't gross like the Predator movie was.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that was kind of cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
One thing the one thing I want to bring up is it's just how like what Phantom Magic was saying with how like even though it was a thriller, it was very
Mhm.
very suspenseful. I actually, when it comes to horror films, especially new horror, I don't get
Mhm.
jumpy a lot at all. This
Mm.
was a movie, and I watched it by myself last night. This was a movie that legitimately made me jump quite a few times.
Yeah.
Yeah, it made me
Also, another
jump the
thing I
first
think,
time I watched it too.
Yeah,
and another thing I think the reason why it made me jumpy too is because we actually
right,
care about these characters. Like we actually want these characters to make it through. Like I was actually sad when the
right.
dad died.
Yeah, same
Like I was
here.
like, no.
But another thing,
Yeah.
but an-
Oh,
but another thing about this movie is, and you were mentioning this earlier, Phantom, is not the music, but the lack thereof. This
yeah.
movie's
Yeah.
use of silence is it is one of the best and most unique parts of this movie, in my opinion, and one of the reasons
I
why I
think the use
chose
of
it.
silence and the use of atmosphere
Exactly.
is phenomenal. Like
Yeah.
the the
After
cinematography
we
in this
know,
film is
The
so good.
cinematography make it like I said because it was inspired by No Country for Old Men. It gave it that western desolate look to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
What was I gonna say?
yeah. And additionally, in No Country for Old Men, you do get a sense of the danger because the sound is sudden.
Right.
It's gunfire in that particular movie, but in this one, it's any sound
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
can spell death. And once we know that, you crave the silence for the sake of the heroes.
Right.
Yeah.
It makes us, yeah, it makes us hate any kind of noise.
There were times when there's like little sounds, like maybe someone pushed like an object where I did get suspense, like oh my god, that gonna prod up the monster or something. Like there was stuff like that. That's how I
Mhm.
thought how good was the storytelling was in context of the sound of the
Yeah.
sound.
Just in general,
Yeah.
the story was great. Like the
Mm-hmm.
overall narrative was like rewatching it again is fantastic. By the way,
Yeah, it was simple enough.
yeah,
Like, we
like
didn't need any complex subplots. Like, the only real subplot, which honestly was more of a main plot, would be the pregnancy.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I wish the one thing I wish the plot had was a little bit more context to the apocalypse because I discovered the whole context of the movie like through the internet and stuff and through John Krasinski's like commentary about it.
actually, they do
And
explain some of it, and they explain how it happened and how the
Yeah.
aliens got there in the second movie, from what I hear.
Oh, okay.
yes, they
Yeah.
do answer a lot of those questions.
Oh, you've seen
And
it.
for
in the second movie.
Oh,
No,
you've
I
seen it.
hear-
How was it?
Hmm?
The second movie.
I have in fact seen it.
You saw it?
Yes.
How was it?
I still think the first one was better, but absolutely worthy. They answer enough questions
Right.
Okay.
in the second one, and they still keep some up in the air, but we just know.
That's good.
Yes.
So it's not. So it's
he
not a
doesn't
Prometheus
completely
situation.
blow the lid on everything.
Right.
Okay, so
On
it
the
does leave a
second
little
one,
bit of
we-
mystery. That's good.
Right.
Honestly, I think the mystery adds to the horror. Like
Me too. Yeah,
Exactly.
like when Prometheus was coming out, I actually wasn't excited for the movie that much because I didn't want to know.
Prometheus.
I also didn't want to know what was happening in that ship in Alien One. And when I saw it, I was like, well, I guess we now know what that alien was in the
Right.
ship. But it's like now you just open a whole new can of worms, and now it's more convoluted.
Remember,
So a lot of times I think I kind of prefer the mystery. Like sometimes I just prefer like because it just leaves it up to like open to like to open interpretation, and I like that in these kind of movies.
speaking of, I talked about similarities with his dumb older cousin Signs, but also another movie that it had a lot of like in common with is that came out the next year was Bird Box.
Which one?
Oh god.
Yeah, the Netflix series. Basically,
Bird Boss, he said. Hol-
it's a
You
quiet
can't
place, but
look at
instead
the
of ears, it's your
monster
eyes.
or they kill you. Well, they drive you to kill yourself.
Right.
yeah.
And
Go.
well, that was actually adapted from a book.
Right.
Yeah. Well, go ahead, X-Man.
So it's not exactly ripping off A Quiet Place, as many people thought. But The Quiet Place still remains a movie.
I bet.
Because there are a lot of...
I wanted. What else I really wanted to bring up? I feel like, and there is every decade there seems, especially in the 2000 and the 2010s, there seems to be horror movies that are incredibly stupid, and then there are really good horror movies that are coming out, and I feel like, especially in the 2000s, when you see like movies like The Descent and The Host, I feel like now with the 2010s, there's that kind of thing, if that makes sense, where we're seeing an era of prestigious horror movies like Get Out,
Mhm.
like A Quiet Place, like Annihilation, which I want to review also, like
Yeah.
excluding like Midsummer and Hereditary, and even the new Invisible Man. There's like cool new original ideas coming out, especially for horror.
And I'm gonna say this now. I know that we talked about this in Ma, but I have a very terrible horror backbone. The only reason why
Right.
I was able to go back to this one was because it wasn't as scary as it was suspenseful.
Right.
Yeah. So that's why I was not
Yeah, it
only
was
able
a
to watch it
PG.
again, but I was able to watch it by myself in the dark.
I mean, it's very much a suspense movie in the style of, like I said, in the style of Alien and
Yeah.
Jaws and Jurassic Park, where we don't see the monster until really the very end. It's more built on all anticipation.
hmm
Yeah. So yeah. So does anyone else want to say anything about the movie?
Hmm.
I think
Oh,
also the level of detail orientation
right.
that the story had, every little detail down to how they acted, anything from
You know what was actually like a
muffle your feet movement or all the various precautions that Emily Blunt's character was taking
you know what I
up
noticed?
to
Hold up, X-Men.
birth.
Go ahead, Ronan.
Yeah, all the details from laying down sand and walking barefoot to muffle your footsteps, to all the various soundproofing preparations that Emily Blunt's character was making so that she could safely and quietly give birth. Because giving birth involves a lot of various noises. And this is probably the worst possible time
Oh my
to be
god.
pregnant.
Damn
Which
it.
is why
rocket.
she
Oh, well,
absolutely goes
on the
through it.
yeah, exactly. But go ahead, X-Man.
No, North Ronan brought up what I wanted to bring up. That I noticed that they didn't wear shoes throughout the movie, and I just thought that was a brilliant little detail that they put in. Like that was just really, I just thought that was just really interesting.
Yeah, one thing I do want to bring up is the rocket when the mother was giving birth. That I thought was a fantastic idea. And I love
Right.
one thing that I love is that you can like not only in the father's basement, he really studied these things. Not only can you tell that he spent sleepless nights studying these things, but he figured out a way to lure them because their actions are quite predictable. They're
Right.
not the wisest of creatures.
Well,
They're
They're
very
purely instinct driven.
exactly.
Like they don't
Yeah.
even like the reason they're eradicating all life on this planet. Like, they're not zombies. They're not eating people or feeding on humanity. They're just wiping out all other life
Mm-hmm.
because that's the only sort of threat on this planet to them, whereas they must have been the apex predator on their own home planet.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I also think that they don't only kill humans; they kill other animals too, and that's shown.
Do they? Because like there was like
No, they killed the
birds
raccoon.
there, and I was just like, do they
Oh yeah,
even
they
hunt?
did kill the raccoon. That's right.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah, no. 'Cause at first, I was like
Yeah.
wondering, like, do they only kill humans? Because we only see them like kill the humans at first, and we see all these like like birds and whatnot that are like still making noise, and they seem to be fine.
Yeah.
But it turns out
Well,
later
they
on,
can't
oh wait,
fly.
Yeah,
these
exactly. That's probably why they don't bother
they
with
can't fly.
birds.
That's why.
Right.
And that's
Yeah,
one thing
'cause-
that I do love is that every sound that they hear, they're like, "Oh, that's prey. I'm gonna go run to that." So
Right.
it's yeah,
Not gonna eat it, just need it to stop living. Like, they
Yeah.
kill for sport, which is almost even more terrifying
Mhm.
than if they're just animals feeding.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, it's not because we're hungry, we just hate everything. That's their deal.
Right. So overall, I give this movie like a 4.5 out of 5.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
Like it's really
it's a very
it's
solid
really
movie.
good. I think the idea was good. I thought they managed to brilliantly like creatively come up with something in the idea. Like they managed to really put effort into the idea. I think it also. I like how short it was. I think it could also worked at a 30-minute film, but I think it worked. I wish there was a little bit more contact to the apocalypse, but other
Again,
than
second movie.
yeah, second movie.
Yep.
And
Once again.
and yes, viewers, we are reviewing it because the second one is out, and I don't know if we're all gonna watch the second one yet, but
I'd love
yeah,
to.
overall,
Yeah.
I like the movie. I would watch it again. I didn't think it was gonna be great, but I'm foolish, so yeah, I'm glad I watched it.
Yeah, I gotta give it a 4.5 out of 5 for the reason that it had a very unique idea, but it didn't try to go too deep with it. It was a very simple story. They didn't oversell anything. It wasn't super simple, but it was just simple enough to keep you not only to keep you entertained, but to always be like, oh wow, this is actually really freaking fantastic.
Right.
Mhm. Yeah, so yeah, I'm the same. You like 4.5. It's a very solid thriller film, and a solid monster
Yeah.
movie at that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm right there with you at the 4.5.
Yep.
Not only is it just a good solid movie, you get the sense that this is a passion project.
It
that
is.
Really
It really
paid
is.
off.
It was.
Yes, all coming from John Krasinski. He knew, and his sort of immediate family. Wrote, directed, produced. Like, he was involved at every angle with this.
Right.
And additionally, he could explore this very contained story at every angle.
He really could.
Like
Yeah.
even down to the super abrupt ending of
Shut up.
because now
Yeah.
they can be killed. It is so
Yeah,
difficult
and I know,
to
like,
pull off an ending as abrupt
because when they figure out
as
the
that.
weakness, yeah. But like when they figure out
And
the weakness,
that's-
they know that they can win now, because
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and that's what I'm point, because
And-
they can't survive through the
Right.
noise.
Yeah, that's what I liked
Yeah.
about it. Like, it
Temple
ended
is-
after they killed the first one because you kind of know that, yeah, now they know the weakness and they're going to kill whatever aliens are on there. Or at least most of them, or die trying, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and I do
They
like
at
that
least
they,
have
yeah.
a chance now.
Yeah.
That's what the ending shows, and that's all they needed to show, because up until now it was just a complete. They're just death
This entire movie.
until.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, up until they find the weakness with the hearing aid frequencies, the monsters are just death. It's inevitable. You make a sound, you die. Now, the abruptness of the ending was just a chance, and
Right.
it would not have worked any other way.
Yeah, I like that this
Yeah.
movie doesn't show more than it has to.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
In
Oh.
stark contrast to the last movie we reviewed, Army of the Dead, this had just one movie, not two movies jammed into a Franken movie, just one clean concept explored at every
A
angle.
Franken movie. Oh my god. Alright.
Right.
Alright, X-Men, read them
Alright.
their rights.
So we're all good.
Yeah.
I think so.
All right,
Yeah.
so that's A Quiet Place. Check it, and also check out A Quiet Place 2, which is currently playing in theater and on demand. And yeah,
Mhm.
and just like Marty McFly, we are out of time. This is Hollywood 97. I'm your host, the X-Man.
Phantom Magic.
Rand Proxy.
North Ronin.
And Holly 97ers, you know what to do. Hit that like button, subscribe, smash the bell when it's well, and we'll see you for the next video. Bye.
See you later.
Bye.